What's up, my fellow complainers and yappers of the internet? I am Cold Parasite, or Parasitic Coldness, whatever you'd like to call me. I am a parasite. I am cold. I am parasitic. I have the coldest in me. Anyways, so today I'm going to talk about socialism. So, yeah, I do think that, people should, people who have the money should share it, to those who are less fortunate than others, and people who kind of need to live off of stuff to be able to afford things or whatever. I would encourage people who are more fortunate to give to the less fortunate. I get that. Okay. Then there's also the side of, well, it's my money, I can do what I want with it. I also understand that too. You want to be greedy all you want. I don't care. It's still, shape it however you want. It's still greed, you keeping your money to yourself and buying, whatever you want to do with it. Whether it's, maybe you're buying more for yourself in terms of sustaining yourself. Like maybe you're just like, stocking up on groceries and whatnot, maybe you're just, sort of being, I mean, the way I see it, if you are doing that, you're sort of being an asshole, because it's like, well, I'm not going to give to the less fortunate, but I'm going to make myself more fortunate, But obviously, I don't think that's very common for, most, people who are pretty fortunate to do. I think it's more common with people who have, better sustaining wealth to, buy things that make themselves, feel pleasure and, make themselves enjoy themselves, where it's like, they'll buy, I don't know, or they'll go on a vacation to Rome, or, they'll buy a caramel macchiato from fucking Starbucks or some shit, It's like, I don't know, I'm in the middle, I think it can work where, you sustain your community, of people that, may have, your fellow people in your community or city, whatever, where like, you wanna make sure that, people less fortunate than you, get what they want, you know. I think, you'd wanna, be able to, give to the less fortunate, because here's the thing, it's like, that, there's people who are less fortunate than you, and the thing is, it's like, the more shit you buy or whatever, the more likely that, like, the prices are gonna be higher and all that, and then eventually those people who are less fortunate, they're still they might still be in a position where they're like, fortunate enough to maybe afford a house, maybe, afford the basic things like a house and car or whatever, but, can't really afford the pleasures of life. And so eventually, if you're sort of being an asshole where you're buying, like, you're buying more and all that, and then they raise the prices, and then therefore, the people who are less fortunate, they're affording their house and their car, but then eventually they can't because, the prices are being raised because of, people are buying more, so they're raising the prices. And so that's sort of gonna have them on the edge of then suddenly, the prices are raised to the point where they can't pay for their house and car anymore. And so then they become homeless or whatever. And then now you got another sort of problem where, homeless people, are going to start, flooding your, area or your community or whatever. And I don't think a lot of people want that, nobody, wants to see a bunch of homeless people just running amok. And I'm not saying that, it's because they're, disgusting or anything, but it's because it's sad to see, because, like, nobody wants to see someone in that position where, they're, like, just living on the street, and they can't afford, like, almost anything, and they have to get by hoping that people give them something, like, whether it's food or money or whatever, like, I literally, like, the other day, there was a homeless dude outside of Wawa. I was walking in, and I didn't have any. It pained me because, I didn't have any cash on me. I just had my card. I'm not gonna give my card, obviously, um, but it pained me that I didn't have any money on me to give him, and so when I was in there, I was thinking about it, and I was just like, I'll get him something. So I got him, and he was asking. I heard him, before I walked in, I heard him ask somebody for a Pepsi, and he was just. I guess he was just thirsty, like he wanted something to drink, and I heard him ask somebody else or whatever, if they can get him a Pepsi, and I don't remember what they said exactly, but I'm pretty sure, or not that I don't remember. I didn't hear what that person said to him, but pretty sure they said no, and they just walked away or whatever, and I felt bad, so I heard that, and I was like, okay, let me just get him a Pepsi. I got the Pepsi, and then I got it to him. I was like, hey, I heard you asked for this, so here you go. And he appreciated it, and he said thank you, and I felt good that I was able to, give to someone who was, less fortunate. And, he was just thirsty. And, that brings me back to my whole point of, basically, socialism, it can work. It can sustain, a community. But at the same time, I could see why people would be against it, given that, there are greedy people, and they have the right to be greedy, technically, but, it's just a whole thing where it's like, people think, there's also, it's not just, people being greedy, it's also the fact that, like, these greedy people also think that, homeless people and people who are less fortunate should work harder and have better work ethics or whatever, where they're not just relying on people giving them stuff or whatever. And I also get that. I do think people should work harder. We are living in a generation of technology and all that where it's sort of common to not work as hard as people have in the past, but I still think that we should be giving to people who are less fortunate than us, because they deserve it, I think. Regardless of, how they might act or what they may do or whatever, I think they deserve it, because at the end of the day, we're all humans, We all have the desire to want to, be something and do things that we want to do. And I just think that everyone sort of deserves that, like what they want to do. Like, obviously within reason, like, like no one's gonna, no sane person would be thinking like, oh yeah, it's my dream to go and, commit mass genocide. And we shouldn't be funding people like that or anything like that, But yeah, like I said, socialism technically works. It's just a matter of if we're going to be nice. All right? Bye. I should clarify. Obviously, there's a lot more to it than let's just all be nice. But I was actually in a rush towards the end there because I noticed the time and I had to be somewhere. So yeah, that's why I said that.